بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين وعلى آله وصحبه ومن استنى بسنته إلى يوم الدين وبعد. قال الله عز وجل في كتابه العزيز وفرقانه الحميد بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن عدة الشهور عند الله 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم ذلك الدين القيم فلا تظلموا فيهن أنفسكم صدق الله العلي العظيم. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أفضل الصيام بعد شهر رمضان شهر الله المحرم أو كما قال عليه الصلاة والسلام. Honorable brother and respected sister in Islam, although we were speaking about spiritual ailments and sicknesses of the heart, today we take a little pause and we focus on the occasion at hand. And the occasion is the commencement of our new year. The way in which we look at our year is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in our religion has given us a renewed version of everything. Everything, literally everything was Islamified as soon as the Prophet ﷺ came in. And it was different than the way of people who didn't believe in Islam. Everything to the extent where even our calendar is our own calendar. Right? When it comes to the solar calendar and the lunar calendar, both of them belong to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Both of them are Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's calendars. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the rotations of the sun, and right after that He talks about the moon. Says in Surah Yasin, وَالشَّمْسُ تَجْرِي لِمُسْتَقَرٍ لَهَا, and then right after that, وَالْقَمَرُ قَدَّرْنَاهُ مَنَازِلَ حَتَّى عَادَ كَالْعُرْجُونِ الْقَدِيمِ. Both calendars are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so even the calendar that we go by, it's not frowned upon. It belongs to Allah, and the moon belongs to Allah, so both of them are from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But one of the reasons why our religion revolves around the lunar calendar, one of the reasons why the moon is preferred is because one of the reasons, it's not like a prophetic tradition which connotes this, but one of the wisdoms, rather, is that a lot of places, like we see the North Pole, etc., they don't got sun for a little while, right? There's 30 days where there's no sun. So it's easier for logistical purposes, for calculation purposes, to go by the moon where, the month and the year and everything can be remaining intact. So one of the wisdoms behind why the lunar calendar was prioritized, and the reason why the Hijri calendar revolves around the lunar calendar, is because of this reason. Nevertheless, a little history behind the establishment of our calendar before we go into how we commemorate a new year. I apologize in advance for the lackluster vibes and for the coughing in between. I have a little flu, so just everyone bear with me for today, inshallah. So when it comes to a little bit of a background, in a nutshell, as to how our calendar was established before we go into details of how we should commemorate it, and especially this month, Muharram, is it was inspired by a request of a Sahabi, a companion of the Prophet ﷺ by the name of Abu Musa Ash'ari radiallahu anhu. He asked Umar radiallahu anhu, he said, "Oh Umar, when it comes to our documentation, we've grown and we need a calendar to document things. We really need dates. We need this. It wasn't yet established in the time of Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, in the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the time of Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. People would just remember things. People would just remember dates. But when things started just adding up and the Ummah's responsibilities started taking off, Abu Musa Ash'ari radiallahu anhu requested. So he asked Umar radiallahu anhu. And Umar radiallahu anhu held a consultation. He asked people, what should we do? Is this a valid request? And people said, yeah, this is something we should take into consideration. We need our own calendar. The thought which inspired Ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu was one of the captives that he had, Hormuzan. He mentioned the calculation methods by the Persians. And that is what inspired the thought of a calendar. But they didn't actually agree right away on what the calendar should be established on. What should be, the starting point of an Islamic year, right? There was different opinions exchanged. Some of them had the birth of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Like it's the most blessed day ever. Why don't we start it at that point? But then when they asked, okay, when was the Prophet ﷺ born, then they had differing opinions. Some said this day, some said that day. So even the birthday of the Prophet ﷺ wasn't really something established. It wasn't something that everyone agreed upon unanimously. And then another idea came about, and that was we should start it at the starting point of the wahy, of revelation. Everyone knew it was in Ramadan, but people had a difficult time, what day was it? When did the Prophet ﷺ first receive the revelation? Jibreel ﷺ came to him, but when did he come to him? And some of them said no, he came to him on this day, and some of them said no, he came to him only as a form, as a figure at that day. The form that he would come to him regularly, he didn't come to him in that form. So there was multiple opinions going back and forth. But one thing that everyone agreed upon when it comes to the date was the establishment of the calendar according to the hijrah of the Prophet ﷺ. Because they all did it together. So people knew that this is a date which, subhanAllah, it's accepted. It's a revolution in Islamic history. It's something that the Prophet ﷺ uses as a fresh start to everything. And that's something that we all know that we agree upon when it comes to the date as well. So that is something that we should do, and Umar radiallahu anhu agreed to that. That is something that a lot of us might know of. But why Muharram now? Why Muharram being the first month? Because the months were established before, right? The months were established before. Ayat pertaining to months were revealed before. Muharram, Safar, Rabi'ul Awwal, all of this that was already there before. But why did we choose Muharram to begin our calendar? And one beautiful reason that Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu gave was it's right after Hajj. It's right after Hajj, and right after people come back from Hajj, it's a fresh start for them. It's like you make your resolutions to your life that I'm not going to do this ever again. I'm going to inculcate such habits in my life, etc. And all of these things that we commit to ourselves. That happens after Hajj. It happens after a lot of people come back for Hajj, and our spirits are now galvanized. We have an added level of enthusiasm to carry out actions. So why not start? So that was one of the hikmahs, one of the wisdoms behind why Muharram was chosen first. Besides the aspect of it being the only month referred to by the Prophet ﷺ as Shahrullah, the month of Allah. The month of Allah, which is a perfect now segue into how we commemorate this new year that we have. We all know that when it comes to the new year in our regular conventional calendar that we use every single day, we know how people commemorate. We know how people celebrate the new year. And honestly speaking, it's unsavory to even speak of some things that are carried out on this day. On the day of the 1st of January, the closing out, the 31st of December, the morning of January, everybody's knocked out because, it might have been drinking, it might have been partying too hard, it might have been doing a whole bunch of vice-filled activity. But that's not how we celebrate our new year. For the disbelievers, their aspect of celebrating another year, even when it comes to them celebrating their birthdays, that it's like we beat one more year. We got to live one more year, so let's celebrate, let's party. For us, it's a moment of reflection that one more year has gone by. This time that I had last year is never going to come back again. This year that I've had is never going to come back again. The amount of breaths I've taken in this year, that's it. That was the only time I breathed those breaths. They're never going to come back to me. How did I spend that year, and what do I plan to do next year? So for us, it's moments of rumination. That's how we celebrate. It's reflection. It's deep introspection into our personal lives, into our personal accomplishments, into our personal goals, into our personal aspirations, instead of just, partying it away. Because the Prophet ﷺ tells us very, very clearly, he spells it out for us, so there can be no hiccup of a doubt, there can be no hesitation in understanding that this world is not for us to live it up. We're not here to party. We're not here to have fun. As much as fun is permissible, as much as entertainment is something that is even encouraged at times, that's not the purpose for why we're here. We're here to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and live it up in the next life. As opposed to the people who don't believe in an afterlife, who are disbelievers in Islam, who don't have our values, we don't judge them for the way they celebrate, because this world is it to them. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لا يغرنك تقلب الذين كفروا في البلاد. Right? Don't let the constant flamboyance or the traveling about and having fun and this really elegant luxurious lifestyle of the disbelievers deceive you. Why? مَتَاعٌ قَلِيلٌ. It's a little stuff. It's temporary. It's a delusion. It's a bubble that can pop at any time. Right after that, ثُمَّ مَأْوَاهُمْ جَهَنَّمْ. Where are they going? It's not going to be a comfortable abode to where they're going forever. وَبِئْسَ الْمِهَادُ. And that's a really bad abode. So let them enjoy. Let them live it up. Don't look at them and be like, oh, must be nice, must be fun. I got to do something like that too. Right? SubhanAllah, when it comes to their commemorations, they're doing that because this is their Jannah. The Prophet ﷺ says, "Ad-dunya sijnul mu'min." That this world is a penitentiary, it's a jail for the believer. Wa jannatul kafir. And it's paradise. It's a garden of bliss. It's luxury. It's all a disbeliever has when it comes to goodness. So for us, that is why we sometimes, when it comes to like, oh my God, the way the Imam describes our fun activities and our fun days is that he tells us to celebrate by reflecting. Right? That sounds boring. That sounds boring. Why am I going to do that? That's the reason why. Because we're not here to only have fun. Sometimes when it comes to different things that happen to us in our life, we have a completely different perspective on it. And if we have not yet developed that perspective, it's about time now that we start developing that perspective by at least acknowledging that the perspective we have currently is not a correct one. It's not a conducive one. It's not something that matches the values and principles of our faith. And the perspective is that this time is gone and I'm never getting it back, and what can I do now going forward to better myself? Did I pray all of my salahs in the year that had just passed? If I didn't, what can I do to start praying now? Did I fast all of my Ramadan fast? Did I use my Ramadan like it ought to be used? Or can I do something better next year? Did I feed like the needy? Did I do enough charity work? Did I do something to make a difference in this world? When I leave this world, how am I going to be remembered? People might remember me, but will I even be missed? Right? This next Muharram, I'm probably not going to see it again because life is short. Inshallah, I'm hopeful that I can see it, but I don't know if I'm going to see it again. What did I do, or what can I do to make sure that if I'm not here, if I'm not standing, if I'm not breathing on next Muharram, what can I do now to please Allah and meet Him in a state where He's happy with me and I'm happy with Him? These are all questions. These are ways which we use to commemorate our new beginnings. And that is why Muharram was chosen. It happens right after Hajj. Even though all of us logistically can't even go for Hajj. It's not possible. But that doesn't mean we don't share in the spirit of the Hujjaj. The spirit of the Hujjaj is that they are coming back fresh, like newborn babies. If we did our due diligence in Dhul Hijjah and worshipped Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala properly in Dhul Hijjah as He ought to be worshipped, inshallah we're looking at, not the exact same reward as Hajj, that's impossible, but something very similar. Allah's mercy doesn't know any bounds, right? So inshallah we're like that too. It's a fresh beginning for us. It's a fresh start for us. So every year that we have a chance to have a fresh start, what resolutions can we make? Start noting it down, sit down and literally introspect. حاسبوا أنفسكم قبل أن تحاسبوا. Umar bin Khattab radiallahu anhu, beautiful advice that he used to give is take account of yourself before someone else takes account of you. Right? Before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks you, what did you do with this time that I gave you? You better ask yourself, what am I doing with this time that I have been given? Am I wasting it away to the futility of this world? Or am I actually doing my best to make use of it? These are all questions we need to ask ourselves. Actually sit down and with this intention of muraqabah, of taking account of oneself, write down goals. Physically write down goals. Whether it's on a piece of paper with a pen or whether it's on your phone, physically document your goals for this particular year. If you just have them in the back of your mind, in the back of your subconscious, it's probably not going to work out. Like everybody in the beginning of a new year, they have their resolutions. They go back to the gym. They start pumping some iron. They go on a diet for like 5 days. And I mean, the gyms are full for like a few days, but right after that, they're all empty again. Because people are just too pumped to actually do something productive. But productively set realistic goals for yourself. That this is how I lived last year, and it can't be the same this year. It has to be something different. And we all know, that's why I'm not giving you specific goals from a Jummah khutbah, like this is not homework. This is the homework that you get from the khutbah is you go home and you know yourself, take account of yourself, that this is what I didn't do last year, this is what I need to add this year. Right? So that is one way that we commemorate. Now as far as Muharram is concerned, its specific month, not talking about it from the aspect of a new year now, just the month specifically, Muharram, it is one of the 4 sacred months. Right? One of the 4 sacred months. We talked about the 4 sacred months in Dhul Hijjah, just to add on to it through the specifics and the precision in the virtue of Muharram. The Prophet ﷺ referred to it as Shahrullah, the month of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. No other month in the entire calendar gets or enjoys the privilege of being referred to as the month of Allah. Reason why is because there's the day of Ashura in here. The Prophet ﷺ said it's like the best month to fast after Ramadan. Right? In one hadith he says after Ramadan the best month to fast, the month of Muharram. And also because in it is a very, very, very auspicious day. Very auspicious day. What day am I referring to? The day of Ashura. The day of Ashura. And what is the day of Ashura? According to most ulama, most scholars, most sahaba, according to the jumhur, like you say, the consensus, it is the 10th of Muharram. Although there is, just to be academically and intellectually honest, there is an opinion of Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu, a great sahabi, who says it's on the 9th of Muharram. But that is a minority view because he's alone with that. He bases his opinion on some linguistic differences that Arabs used. When they say one day, they mean a day after it or something like that. It's a linguistic detail, very, very academic. But just to be academically honest, I mentioned that. But primarily, what the day actually is, it's the 10th. And that's exactly what Ashura even means. It comes from Ashra, which means 10. What happened on this day? Why is it auspicious? Primarily because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had kept virtue in it from beforehand, which is why a lot of incidents transpired on this day. It was actually fard to fast on this day before Ramadan had been prescribed. Before the fasting of Ramadan, the Prophet ﷺ and the Sahaba would fast on the day of Ashura. So when Ramadan came and the Ashura fast became just voluntary, and its fardiyah, its obligation dropped off, it was abrogated, then some Sahaba radiallahu anhum had like a little confusion, which is why we find incidents like Muawiyah bin Abu Sufyan radiallahu anhu, a great Sahabi who was actually elected to be a Khalifa also. He stood up on the pulpit one day and he addressed the people of Medina. He's like, Ya Ahl al-Madina, ina ulama'ukum, O people of Medina, where are your scholars? And he was referring to what are y'all doing eating? Right? Because فَإِنِّي سَمِعْتُ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ that I heard the Prophet ﷺ on this day of Ashura saying that I am fasting, so whoever wants to, they should fast. right, in an encouraging way that all of you fast now. So there were some Sahaba were very strong of the opinion that all of you should fast. And then you also find opinions like, for example, there was a tabi'i, a person who met the companions of the Prophet ﷺ but didn't actually meet the Prophet ﷺ himself. His name was Ash'ath bin Qais, rahimahullah. He went to visit his teacher, Ibn Mas'ud, radiallahu anhu, who was an illustrious companion of the Prophet ﷺ, and he was eating lunch on the day of Ashura. He visited him and he asked him, he's like, what are you doing? He had like a really bewildered look on his face, like, what are you doing eating on this day? Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu said, relax, man. It was fard before Ramadan came. Now the obligation of it has dropped. It's abrogated, so I can eat if I want to, man. Don't come join me. If you're fasting, then don't join me. Right? So Sahaba radiallahu anhum had mixed opinions as to how virtuous it is to fast or how obligatory it is. Although it is not obligatory, what I will say is it's definitely virtuous. It's definitely virtuous because the Prophet ﷺ says that I hope to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I really hope from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that the person who fasts on this day أُكَفِّرُ السَّنَةَ الْمَاضِيَةَ or أُكَفِّرُ السَّنَةَ الَّتِي قَبْلَهُ, that it will actually obliterate, it will expiate the sins of the previous year. Right? And that is a really big deal. Fasting on one day and coupling it with a day or after it or before it, that's a really big deal if it can wipe out a whole year of sins. And that actually goes on with our whole theme of starting over. You know, I mean, it's not talking about major sins, like if you hurt somebody, you still have to go apologize. But it's talking about minor sins that are committed throughout the course of an entire year before it. So speaking on the theme of starting new and starting fresh and having a clean slate, fasting Ashura becomes a part of the equation. Fasting on the day of Ashura becomes part of the equation. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us the ability to fast on the day. How to fast it though? The Prophet ﷺ came to Medina and he saw people fasting on the day of Ashura and he's like, wait, why are y'all fasting? They said, because Musa alayhi salam was saved on this day. His followers and him were saved from Fir'aun and his tyrannical army on that day. So the Prophet ﷺ said, seriously, we are more entitled to Musa. نحن أولى, or أنا أولى بموسى منهم. I am more entitled to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam than them. Right? I am more of a follower. I love Musa alayhi salam more than them. So it's even more right for me to fast on this day. So the Prophet ﷺ started fasting on that day. But he also said, if I am alive, if I'm alive the next year, I'll also fast on the 9th. And there's a different hadith of the Prophet ﷺ reported by Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal where he says a day before it or a day after it. So it's best to fast on the 9th and 10th, but the 10th and 11th is also an option. It's best to fast on the 9th and 10th because explicitly in the hadith what we find is the 9th. Right? If I'm alive till the next year, I will fast on the 9th also. But because we find another hadith which says after it also, 10th and 11th is also an option. So that is how we fast it. And the reason why we do that is because everything in our religion, the Prophet ﷺ says, you know, do it differently than people who are not Muslim do it. Have your own identity. We're Muslim. We have our own religion. We have our own way of doing everything. Which is why the concept of tashabbuh bil kuffar is something very frowned upon. Right, imitating the ways of the disbelievers. That doesn't mean their culture or their dress or their language, and that's not what it means. But it's talking about anything religious. Like for example, a lot of our kids sometimes they really look forward to Christmas because they don't know any better. Christmas is so hyped, Halloween is so hyped, Easter is so hyped, but Eid is just like the day where you just take a really awesome Eid nap. Right? Eid is just a day where you just go and you eat, and that's it. Eid is not, it hasn't been hyped enough. Ashura, our moments have not been hyped enough to our kids that they have to look forward to the ways of the disbelievers. And these ways of the disbelievers, even when it comes to our commemorations, the Prophet ﷺ said, do it differently. So that is one a very big reason why the Prophet ﷺ said fast on the 9th and 10th or the 10th and 11th, because he always advised us to do the opposite of what people who are not Muslim do. Right? For example, he would say it explicitly too. Like for example, he would say it was customary for Arabs to grow the beard, but also to keep the mustache long. Very, very long, like where it used to come out of your lip or whatever. So the Prophet ﷺ said, grow your beards long, but cut off the mustaches and make them short. Right, and go against the disbelievers, the oppose their ways. So that's what the Prophet ﷺ, that was just an example to show us the Prophet ﷺ, everything that he would tell us to do that was very similar in the culture of the disbelievers, in the religion of the disbelievers, he would tell us to do it differently because we have our own way. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has honored us with our own way. And lastly, before I close off, just to give it a mention, the incident of the martyrdom of Hussein radiallahu anhu, Karbala, all of these things, although they transpired on this day, they don't really have much to do with the day, the blessing of the day itself. Right? We don't celebrate Ashura to mourn, we celebrate Ashura to worship Allah. All right, we celebrate Ashura. Ashura was virtuous before, although we are extremely saddened by the way Hussein radiallahu anhu was taken from us. That was an extremely sad day. It was an extremely heartbreaking day for the entire ummah. But just like that, it was an extremely heartbreaking day when Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib was taken from us. The uncle of the Prophet ﷺ who was horribly assaulted and he was mutilated, etc. And he was really close to the Prophet ﷺ to an extent where the Prophet ﷺ forgave his killers, but he said, I don't want to see your face again. Right, so extremely sad was that day also. So as sad as this day is, that day was sad too. But we're not a nation who just mourns. We're a nation who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala under any and all circumstances. So that is just something that I wanted to mention, by the way, because a lot of folks might have this understanding. What is the significance of the incident of Karbala and the martyrdom of Hussein radiallahu anhu, the grandson of the Prophet ﷺ? It doesn't have much to do with the virtue of the day, although it did transpire on this day arbitrarily. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give me and all of us the ability to make most of this new year. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us in this new year. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive our sins of the past. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to fast in Ashura, in all of our honorable occasions. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to make most of this future Ramadan that is coming. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the ability to be alive till then and make the most of it. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive all of those who have passed on and returned to His mercy before this. Wa akhiru da'wana alhamdulillah.